Hey, haven't you been wanting to start a podcast?
Yeah, but doesn't it take a lot to make one?
Well, let me tell you about Anchor. It's free, and it's the easiest way to make a podcast. On top of that, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
Oh, that sounds amazing. But doesn't it take a lot of work to put my podcast on different platforms?
Actually, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more.
That sounds fantastic.
On top of that, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. So it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
So where do I get started?
Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
And welcome back to another episode of the Convoluted podcast. It's your host, Jesus, aka Tyrant Dominus, and I'm here with Liz.
Hey.
And if it's your first time listening, you can always follow or subscribe. It's free, and you can always unfollow and unsubscribe. And today we have a very special episode. We have a guest. I know we've been spouting, we've been having guests sooner or later, but we're back at it. And today we have Christian Reeves. Welcome.
It's Reeve. It's not Reeves. Sorry, I hate to be that
did I not say Reeves? No. Wait, did I mess it up? I messed it up already. No.
Jesus.
That's not.
Way to drop the
me
ball.
having a go. It's literally like there's been about 5 or 6 people in the last 6 months who've made the same thing, and I never normally say anything because I'm like, oh, whatever. But I gotta say something. I'm sorry.
You're the one who has to be blamed, Jesus.
It's just not my name. Do you know what I mean? Like Reeves is a surname, and I don't know. I get a bit
I don't,
because I know people sometimes correct it because they think that I've done it wrong, but it's I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway,
you want to know the truth here? I literally was thinking the exact same thing, and I did it in my head over 10 times, so I wouldn't mess it up.
And that's why I'm by no means am I having a go or anything. It's just I don't know. It's one thing when you see someone does their promo for text promo and they get it wrong, and I'm just like, oh, it's fine. But when it's introduces someone on the show, it's like, oh, gotta say something. I don't want. Sorry.
But there you guys go, Christian Reeve. A pleasure. I don't
want to be like, that's not my name. How dare you? Actually, it's because I'm not. It's not like I'm anyone important. I'm just some guy, But it's like.
But you're a person, a human being.
Oh yeah, we
can respect you.
You are, sir. You are a very talented individual. Like all our guests, we always ask them to give us a little background of them, and we took our time. We're not lazy. We do research on our guests. We spend an hour or more. But yeah, I took a good chunk of time. I listened to your podcast. You are very uniform in all your profiles and everything. The Christian Reeve podcast, simple to the point. Me trying to come up with names, God, horrible. But yes, you are a very variety talented person, acting, writing, podcasting. You sir are everywhere and doing it well.
Virus, you can't get rid of me. No, I mean,
he's slowly seeping in everywhere.
You can't get rid of me. Do you know? It reminds me of this. I remember I was reading up on Lady Gaga, and as you guys may not know, she received a lot of hate when she was growing up, to the extent that a group of people that she went to school with created a Facebook group.
Oh, yeah, I
purely
heard
for the
about that.
purpose of hating on her. Yeah, which I wonder how those people feel now, huh?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Damn, I should have
Anyway.
been nicer to that bitch.
I did
Is
not
she-
know there was this secret lore about Lady Gaga. What?
Oh yeah. No, they hated on her, because she was very talented from a young age, and I mean, it's like anyone who believes in themselves from a young age. I've had people turn around and tell me, you're deluded, you'll never get anywhere with this, like it's just a hobby, etc., etc. It's a tough thing to gamble on yourself, to believe in yourself. It's not easy, and she did that, and then I don't know. I think it was a boyfriend. That's it. She was dating a guy. This guy was just like typical, trying to wear her down, bring her down, toxic boyfriend, that kind of thing. And she literally turned
Yeah,
around to him and
nice.
said, "One day there will be a day when you won't be able to go anywhere without seeing my face on like a billboard or like hearing it on the radio or whatever." And look at Lady Gaga now, like So,
Everywhere and
I mean,
anywhere. Iconic.
I don't know why I brought that up. That was such a weird analogy. I didn't even have a point. I just wanted to share that story because I thought it was pretty cool. But I don't know, to answer.
No.
This is about a random ass stuff. We talk about random ass crap all the time. Don't worry about that. You're good.
Graham, definitely in the right place.
And to your point, no, yeah, there are as far as any projects or hobbies that you wish to make more of something. Just having known that there are people out there that put people down for whatever their desires will be, and the people that like you just tell them off, like, no, I'm gonna do something with this, and one day,
no,
F you, and then and it's icon.
you will
and
not
it's
bring me
like,
down. No, behave.
and it's
Right,
moments like
I
that
just
that. No, continue.
Sorry, I'm interrupting. I'm being really.
To kind of just finish off that statement, it's moments or people like that that when you see someone like Lady Gaga who has that history, that lore to show, like, yeah, it can be done, and we all have the potential as long as we have the devotion to continue pursuing our stuff, our projects, our dreams. We can do it. The second you give up, and you can't show them off to the haters, basically. And for sure we have a couple, and we're getting there. We're getting there.
Oh, it's not wrong. Like, I mean, I get hate comments every day. I get a lot. I will just say this now. I get a lot of positive comments as well. But we're human beings. We could get 50,000 positive comments, but there could be 2, and those will be the 2 that we pay attention to. And it's stupid.
True,
but
though.
I don't know. Like, one thing I don't know. I think there was someone on my show that said this, or someone I spoke to. I can't remember. I think it might have been one of the guests on my show. But they turned around and they said, like, the only reason we ever get offended by like hate comments is because we acknowledge that there's like a grain of truth in what the person is saying. Because if we truly didn't care, we just would ignore it, right? We just, oh, well, that's not true. But because recognized it's like an insecurity thing. When someone picks on your insecurity, it's like suddenly you're like, you know what I mean? That sometimes like you'll be talking to someone and you slip up, and then they suddenly kind of get really like angry at you, upset you, and you're like, whoa, what happened? And it's because you probably picked on an insecurity of theirs without realizing, or maybe you were just being a douche, but like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
sometimes
Jesus is being a douche.
Oh,
like, I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I love you.
It's like walking through a minefield and you don't know where the mines are, it's like that kind of, but it's like at the end of the day, times it's going to get to you. I mean, I'll give you a really good example. I had a school friend go on a TV show here in the UK called The Apprentice, and it's still on. It's like down to the final now, and he did really well, and we were sort of following him through the process, and it was really cool. And I remember the first couple of weeks, I decided to do like a little action series on like my backup account on TikTok. I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just follow this. It'd be fun. And it was, because you get to interact with people online and just chat about the show. And it's just a bit. And, but one of the first comments I got is from I won't swear, some nasty person. And they basically said, he's done better than you, hasn't he? Let's face it. And actually, he's not wrong. Not wrong. But at the same time, I don't know. It just, I went through it in my head. I was like, do I do a video response? Do I, hate on the comment? Do I ignore it? I don't know. And I was caught in loads of different minds about it. And eventually I was like, ugh. And, you're always going to have critics in life. It doesn't matter what you do. You could be Mother Teresa and people will still hate you. But at the end of the day, it's like my last guest, my literal last guest I had on the show, they literally turned around to me and said, just do this stuff. Just go out there and do it. Don't think about whether or not it's going to be successful. Don't think about, the numbers. Don't focus on any of that. Just do what you love. Just see where it goes, Maybe you'll become a big star, maybe not. Hey, if you're enjoying yourself and having a good time, isn't that kind of the important thing anyway?
Exactly.
Really?
I couldn't say it much better than me. You know what's funny is I listened to that specific episode, the last one, and that guest, I vibed hard with her. She was very, very joyous spirit. That's the best way I can say it. But for sure, some of the sentiments you just redid, like they play out to all humans. Like, just do it for yourself for the most part. Like, that's kind of the only reason this show still exists.
Exactly.
We do it for ourselves, and dozens of people out there, for some reason, want to listen to us. And you know what?
We love them.
Thank you. We love them. We love them.
I think an important part of that as well, like the reason why you should have that mentality, is because it will actually make the content that you produce better. Because the minute you start thinking about like, oh, I should do this to please these people, or I should avoid this because of this reason, or no, I should do this because this is trending. Like, no. Focus on you and what you have to offer and bring. Because let's face it, look, there's about 1 million different podcasts out there. And I'm sure, just like you guys, whenever someone turns around and tells you, I'm going to start a podcast, there's always that immediate groan, right? Because it's like everyone starts a podcast these days. And the real test, like, I always wish people well, but at the end of the day, a podcast is a lot of work, and sometimes people don't even get over the first 7 episodes or 20 episodes or whatever. I think I'm up to like 130 something right now, and it's hard. There's been times when I've looked at it like, what am I doing? What's the point? And throughout the course of just focusing on trying to be a better reviewer and create a better show, I started to figure out like, I guess this is for me personally, is about sharing life stories, getting the most out of people, not just sitting there and going, so what's your job like? It's like, how does that make you feel? Why did you do that? Like probing a little bit, but without an agenda. That's just my thing. But my point is that to distinguish yourself, you got to do your best to do that. And you can only do that through creating. Like you guys, how long have you been doing the podcast?
We're about to hit 5 years this year. Yeah.
We just got our 100 at the end of last year, so.
Yep.
Don't I feel like a fool now? Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe you can. Well, you're ahead of me in the game, so maybe you can tell me. Maybe like, what was the point that you kind of felt like, okay, this is our style? Because been that point, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, oh, okay, this is what, and you sort of ran with it.
I think the beginning, honestly, to tell you the truth, Jesus, I think that's always been our beginning.
So yeah, so
I've always felt like it's been always random ass discussions, as if you remember first one, but that was but this is where we are. We are random still.
So if anyone, yeah,
day one, baby. It's just
so
perfect.
yeah, so here's some hidden lore for this show. The original name for the podcast was going to be RAD, Random Ass Discussions. That was the original name for the show. So anyone listening to this, that was going to be the original name of this show. Mm-hmm. And the way this podcast, specifically the Convoluted podcast, has evolved to a very, very unique like monster for what it is. We started as just a random get-together, talk about random news. We then transitioned to a pure guest, just 1v1, thanks to one of my other podcasting friends. And I like the style. I like talking to people like yourself. It's one of those interesting things we wanted to bring back to the show, bringing on people, talking to them, getting to know them, and letting them share whatever passions or projects they're working on, and giving them a little bit of light while getting to know the individual. And we've in the past, and then kind of the pandemic for me and Liz, we had specific jobs that kind of stagnated and kind of put us on hiatus. unlike other people who kind of took the time to work on projects, which is nice for individuals, but for us, we kind of had to put this on the back burner a little bit. But it has now evolved to a little bit more professionalism. I'm quoting, if anyone's listening, I air quotes, okay? Professionalism, okay? to kind of going back into a little bit of mix of doing the strange stories of the world, to kind of get a little levity of some of the like horrible things that are happening, just kind of giving people, the audience, a little bit of, this is what some random thing is happening, to now like you're having you as one of our first not returning guests, but are returning to that flavor of the show when we had guests on, and giving them the opportunity to share what they have to share. So that's kind of a little bit of a shortened lore of our 5-year journey.
It's kind of what I was speaking for. You know, you've very clearly through stages, and you've gone back and forth, and like that whole time you're like kicking around ideas like, should we do this, shouldn't we do this, should we return to this, shouldn't we? Yeah, and you kind of just go with the flow. You know, it's exactly the same with my show. Like mine, it started as kind of like I guess I'll just talk about whatever at length, because apparently I'm okay at this. People seem to like this. And then, you know, I reached out to a few people online, and I had a bunch of guests, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll run with it. Let's just try and do this. And, you know, the more I did it, the better it got and the easier it got. And then some key things happen, which I think is really important, is like you get that moment where you kind of feel confident with what you're doing. And then that's when it really starts coming to its own, you know. And then the stages are just kind of like everything else evolves around you. You get a better mic, you get a slightly better setup behind you, whatever. You get some better marketing, flashy image, whatever. The core thing is that like the content very slowly gets better. I think people watching it, listening to it, look at that and they're like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing here. You know what I mean? Because any podcast, I don't care who you are, any podcast, you go right back to the beginning, it will be difficult to listen to. It will. It doesn't matter. Even Joe Rogan. Go check out Joe Rogan. You think Joe Rogan was always good? At the very beginning, it was because everyone goes through the same thing. And I think that's also why a lot of podcasts tend to drop off quite quickly, because people don't have, and I always try to hammer home this point, you have to have a plan. You're going to do a podcast, plan that stuff out. Sit there and figure out like exactly what you want to do, and have segments, or you know, however do it, whatever your plan is, but have a plan and work with that and keep working with it. And over time you'll tweak things, and you know, things will get slightly easier here and there, and you might get rid of things or whatever, but it's like natural progression. I think when you try and force things, that's when you start encountering problems and whatnot, like, you know. And also to some extent, and this might be controversial, but I don't think you should pander to your audience either. I don't think you should ignore your audience. Like, take a notice of what they say, but don't like to entertain them. But you're still hiding it. You're still, do you know what I mean? It's still your vision. Like, unless you've got like a major backlash, like just everyone listening's like, oh, I've been a fan for ages, but I hate what you're doing. Like, obviously listen to that. But you know what I mean?
I feel like that's our show. No, I'm just kidding. There's no hate.
Fans love your show. Come on. I mean, for 5 years, you must have built like a really decent following now. It's like, it's good.
I don't know. I know we have our up and downs with our listenership. It's awesome. Either way, I love them.
We have our key members, and to
a few members. Yes, we love them.
We have our key. There's a definite like 50 people who are key listeners, and to you 50 who are like diehards. Thank you.
No,
and to our randoms, and to the random people listening, we believe in you too. Join our cult of listenership. I need to make that shirt.
Honestly, congratulations on that. That's really amazing stuff. I mean, it's not easy. I've been doing the podcast now it'll be 2 years in July, and I've struggled to get to just like 5 or 10 people. You know, it's hard. It's not easy. And I've had moments where I thought about stopping it because it just wasn't sure it was ever going to get better or it was ever going to move forward. But then I kind of thought, you know what? My focus, if my only goal and reason to do this is just to get numbers, then I'm not doing this for the right reasons. And that's when I really began to enjoy the podcast a lot more again when I just focused on creating good shows, fun shows, and also thinking about what I could gain from it as well. I think that's, there's got to be a bit of self-interest in that. Like, what are we trying to do here? Does this work for us as much as it does for the other person? And it's interesting, like some of the people I've had on the show, and hey, feel free to interrupt me if I'm rambling here, because I know I do that sometimes.
It's all good. That's what we are. We just we let people talk. We like it. It's better than our voices half the time. I'm just kidding.
No, you're totally right.
No, go on, please. After you.
No, I'll let you finish your thought. Then I'll interject.
The thing I was going to say is that, like, when it comes to guest selection and who you're going to have on your show and stuff, do your research. Make sure it's people that you can actually have a conversation with, because I've had a few instances, not loads, but a few people have come on the show. It's like, okay, my mission is to just promote myself. And I get that, but I just think that's like a really sucky way of approaching it. Like me sitting here now on your show, I'm not going to sit here and just go on about myself for an hour. I'm gonna try to. What,
you really didn't want to? I mean, come on, Christian, you can do that.
No. If you want to, it's marketing 101. If you want to win people over, you don't sit and just continuously go on about your product like it's the best thing in the world. It does this, it does this, it does this. No. Show people. People react to action, not just words. I could sit here right now and just be like, you should check out this thing I do, and this thing, and this thing. But it's like, why? Who cares? Because if I try to create content and engage with this show and what you're doing, people are more inclined to be interested and be like, maybe I will check this person out because they did X, Y, and Z. They made a fun time. That's what people are looking for, entertainment. They're not looking for you to... or just, I don't know, shill whatever you're doing. You know what I mean? Like, I always try to keep it minimum,
No, and I totally understand. Like, you try to keep it fresh. You try to keep it fresh here. Because one thing for sure, like, this show specifically is not the only thing we kind of do. We have other projects. You yourself have more than you're more than your podcast. We like you said, research when it comes to guests, for anyone who's, like we've been saying, as far as podcasting, because usually when podcasts get podcast guests, it's usually another podcaster, and sometimes they want to listen to that because maybe I want to do a podcast, and like we mentioned earlier, podcasts can be a dime a dozen, but like we said, do it for yourself and why you want to do it. And if you want to get into the interview kind of game, number one rule when trying to find guests is just ask. Number one thing, just ask, because the worst they'll say is no, and you just move on.
Or they say, what my sister said, the answer is always no until you ask, right?
Exactly. And we have had multiple guests say no to us, which is fine. But the ones who have said yes, actually, there's been two people. I'm never gonna mention them on our thing, but there have been two people which no was definitely not. There was like literal death threats. Like, and that doesn't make no sense to me, but yeah, it's I can tell you guys about it off camera, but yeah, like you would think, no would be the worst thing you get, but anyways, no is the worst thing you'll ever get if you're trying to get into the podcasting game, because when you do have the chance to actually speak to an individual, if you're searching for them, or the way I've met most of the interviews, like through the Reddit realm, like there's people out there who want to talk and they have a word. Hey, trust me, there's some fun people on there, and sometimes you just gotta sift through the sand and you'll get a diamond or two out of them, and you just research and go from there. But yeah, but like that tangent off. You yourself have other works, like we mentioned earlier in the show. You're also an actor, and I looked into some of the other projects you work. You're very, like I said, you're very talented.
Musician too.
Yeah, like you were in was it a heavy metal band early in your life? You're pretty young into. Like, I didn't get to hear the music, but I am a very, like, I enjoy heavy metal music. I got to get through my nights somehow. And that music kind of gets me pumping and going. So I'm gonna start looking into it. But yeah, so my question for at least the first part is, like, what got you into, like, specifically into acting?
Okay, well, I'll try to, because whenever I tell stories, they forever. But I'll give you the story. Basically, living abroad, I was in a country called Estonia, in Europe, and I was just out there working and living. I was doing marketing, which is like my field, and I mean, it was okay. The job was fine. I'd worked many years in customer services, like when I was at uni and before that, and hating life, because customer service is a tough gig.
No kidding.
And when I got into like office stuff, like marketing and whatnot, like I'd finally got into the field that I'd studied for. And, it wasn't what I wanted to do with my life, like a passion sense, but I liked marketing. I love business. I've always liked those things. For the first 6 to 8 months of doing that, I really enjoyed it. Genuinely, every day I came in to work, it was great, and I was like, this isn't work. This is ridiculous. I can't believe it. And then a moment hit when, I just kind of sat there and was like, what am I doing with my life? I mean, I'm passionate about this anymore. Like, I don't wake up and I knew something was missing, as cliche as that sounds. And, to give you some context, music, when I first started years ago doing creative things, music's always been a part of my life. I've always been a musician. And there was a point, and you mentioned the metal band I was in, that was me trying to make a go of it at a young age, like seriously. And I was quite close. And it didn't work out. And then, I let people get in my ear and kind of just convince me that what I was doing was pipe dream, time to get a real job, buddy, all that jazz. And, back then, you know how it is. And I was young. I was 20 at the time, and the person talking to me was tired and happy. And like, okay, you know what? I'm going to listen. I'm going to not be stubborn in this moment, and I'm going to listen to them. So I did the degree, did all that jazz, and that brought me back to that moment I just told you at the beginning of the story. Sitting in an office in Estonia, kind of, what am I doing? And a colleague of mine came up to me and basically said, hey, they're doing this short film, a couple of people I know, and they're looking for a guy from London who's British to play in the movie. And I just laughed. I thought that was really funny. I was like, of course they're looking for a person who fits that description. And I happen to be from London, from the UK. I just applied just for the fun of it. I didn't take it seriously at all. Like, I just applied. I was like, whatever.
Isn't that usually how life goes too? You do something out of randomness and then you're like, oh, okay.
This is where the penny drops. So like, I thought it was funny, and then I get the script and realize I'm the lead, and then it was so funny. I was like, oh. Oh, okay, now I have to take this seriously. So I had to learn a bunch of lines, do this movie for weeks, short film, sorry. And I loved it. I loved it. It felt like performing with music, which I'd done for years, but it was more than that. It was like I got to, instead of just kind of doing one thing, like with music, you're performing, and it's a very personal experience. It's kind of quite a deep experience in some cases, but acting for me somehow feels like you're using so much more. You're tapping into like lots of emotions, you're using all your face, like everything is important with acting, from the things you say to the things you don't say, from the little things that change in your body language, in your face, and everything is important. And Paul gave me some good feedback, and I kept getting little acting roles here and there, commercials, and it kept building and building and building. And it got to a point where I was an extra on Christopher Nolan's Tenet movie, and I was watching all of that kind of unfold and kind of thinking about the surreality of the whole experience. And I think in my mind, I kind of decided this is something that I would like to pursue. I realize it's incredibly competitive. I have no formal training and very little chance or hope of ever being successful. What if? And that's kind of like the story of my life, with everything I do, is what if? Every now and again something will happen that blows your mind. Like I remember I got a video on TikTok to like 0.9 million, and I was like, wow, that's insane. What happened? Yeah, it's just like these little things happen sometimes when you just keep doing your thing. I'm sure it's happened to you guys. You keep posting clips, you don't even think about it. You're like, yeah, whatever. Like, go on to the next one, and then suddenly something just pops off, and you're like, oh wow, okay, and you start gaining some traction, some interest, whatever. It gives you some belief. And don't get me wrong, I've gotten back and forth with regards to how I feel about things. I've had like depressed moments, sad moments, happy moments, triumphant moments, everything in between, you know, the full range of emotions in the human experience. But to fully answer your question, I mean, with acting, it all started with conversation. It led to where I'm at today, which is just applying and seeing what happens. And every time I get an opportunity to act, love it. It's a short film, commercial, being an extra somewhere, voiceovers. I love voice acting. If anyone's watching this, please hire me. But it's fun. It's fun. And I think that's kind of what I want to reiterate here as well. And I said it a little bit before, but like with everything that you do, I think it's really important. And look, I know what I'm saying is not groundbreaking. No one's going to sit there and listen to this and be like, "Well, man, he's really telling us something that we didn't know." Wow. It's all the same stuff you've heard a million times before, but I think it's important that you reiterate these things again and again and again, because people need to hear this. Whatever you're doing, putting your heart and your soul into these things that you're passionate about, it becomes thankless when it's just not working out. It doesn't mean you should stop. It's something that's truly a part of you, and you truly need to get that out into the world. Just do it. Stop focusing on, you know, if it's going to work out, whether it's going to work out, if you have what it takes. You know what? Like, it's about gambling on yourself and just seeing what happens and enjoying the process. And in doing so, like I said before, with the podcast and everything, it will get better and people will start to take note. There you go. As another example of how I can ramble on forever.
No, that's perfect.
It's all good. No, it's all good.
Perfect. It's perfect.
Get it.
Like so for the most part, like we hear it a lot. That sentiment is heard a lot, but sometimes you want to hear it. Like mostly since for the most part, we're an audio podcast, and listening to it from someone else just saying it again, it kind of reinforces that in someone. Or specifically, like your previous episode to date, just listening to your guest talk kind of just like also reinvigorated myself a little bit. Just how passionate she was with her work. It just kind of jump started me again with all my, like, you know what, just time to go 110% on everything I want, because it's good, it's enjoyable to listen to other people who are very passionate about the things and hearing about it, and it just makes you yourself just go 100%. And for those who are kind of just feeling a little sour or negative at that moment, just rehearing that again, mostly if you're listening to this on headphones, I do my best to clean up the audio as best I can to make it just be a little bit more intimate, just hearing that, because we are literally whispering into your ears, and just hearing that in such an intimate way, it's just reassuring. So as much as we will probably hear it 1,000 times before, we'll probably hear it 1,000 times again, and it doesn't hurt to just get that reinforcement. And including like just to gamble upon yourself, you always have to just take those opportunities. You know, it can be risky, and you just sometimes you just gotta weigh the pros and negatives. Be it projects, work, relationships. It can be almost anything. But you have to take those gambles with your life to pursue your happiness. Because because for all of us, as much as we're currently now, I don't know how it is for you in your area at the moment, but the past 2 years have been very sour for a lot of people, and we try to avoid talking about the dark times, but we can't forget about those times. And I know a lot of people are still kind of in that mood, in that sense, and you know, you got to try to gamble and get back out there, because I think we actually did a news story about a lot of people who are stuck basically indoors for so many months, almost over years, 2 years now, and it's just difficult for people to go back into society. For those who were like, I don't know. You seem to be a very extroverted individual. I'm pretty introverted myself, but I'll go out and about every once in a while. But there are a lot of people who are more introverted than myself, who they would go out maybe once or twice a week or maybe a month, to now to the point where this pandemic kind of just like, I don't want to go out at all, and it's just scary for them, be it health reasons or others.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, yeah, it's a sort of thing. It's not easy at all. I mean, I always find it funny when people extroverted. I'm pretty shy when it comes to real life, to be honest. Online and when I need to be extroverted.
She's the yang to my yin, so.
Yeah, I'm the ambivert.
I think I'm kind of the same. I think, but what I realized from a young age is to function properly in this world, you extrovert sometimes. You have to, even if you're an introvert, you have to. And I figured that out from a young age. And I've always a weird thing for me, because when I was younger, I was really extrovert. I was never shy. But now, as I've gotten older, more inclined to listen to people. I don't tend to start conversations. People tend to start conversations with me, and I'll happily sit there and listen all day and talk to someone. And like, I love that. I love conversation, being around other people. I'm also just being by myself and doing my own thing, and I think it's very alluring. And I think a lot of people during the pandemic probably felt the same way. But the difficulty is that, like, when it comes to being introverted or extroverted, there's a lot of stigma attached to being introverted. People tend to say things like, "Oh, you're being antisocial, you're being that." And someone who tends to veer more towards that introvert side of things, I couldn't disagree with that. I think that there's nothing wrong with, not going out of your way to start conversations every 5 seconds, or like sometimes, it's fine to just sit down and be quiet and embrace that. Like, it's not a bad thing. I lived in abroad in Europe. Like, I found that thing, like when the people I was around were having dinner, we wouldn't like sit there talking. We would just chill and just eat and just enjoy the moment. And I grew up with like just constantly talking at the dinner table and stuff like that, right? So I think that a lot of it can be circumstantial. Some of it does come down to choice. I do think there's nothing wrong with just enjoying having to do that. Like, I think in many ways, what the pandemic did was, for many introverts, it was like, oh, well, this is great. Like, this makes no difference to me. Like, for me, it didn't change my life, to be honest. Like, I
changed my life.
I think if anything, it kind of pushed me to kind of go out more, if anything. Because this thing, now I didn't have the ability to just go out when I would want to. Now suddenly it was restricted. It's reverse psychology. Obviously, the thing you can't have now is the thing you want. And I try to make more of a conscious effort to go out and meet people and do things here and there. But I don't know. I think online life has really changed the game. You can have like an entire life online and never step that foot out of your house. And the problem with that is that this online stuff, it is real, but it's not real. Like, I often tend to say online that well, in my real life, people will be like, well, online is real too, is it not? But not really. You're presenting a certain thing, aren't you? Like, you go on an Instagram page, that's what that person wants to show you. They're not happy every 5 seconds. What you're not seeing is them breaking down after work because, they're just a really hard time, or they're not showing you the days when they just break down in tears, and that's the thing. Like, I've always tried to be authentic online, but even I don't show my worst moments, and not because necessarily I feel uncomfortable showing that. It's more because I know that people don't ever want to see that, be near that. Like, it's like when you're going through a really hard time, aside from like your core people that really care about you, like your close friends, family, whatever, a lot of people just distance themselves, Interesting.
Yeah.
It's like,
you have this weird like energy.
It's the energy.
Some people like raw emotions too,
Yeah, it's like, I get it. It's like if you go in a room, let's say you're at a party, right? And there's that one person who's just always in a bad mood. You just don't want to go around them. You don't want to talk to them because you don't want to be in a bad mood as well. Not that you necessarily dislike that person. You might even feel bad for them. You might want them to be happy, but you're not responsible for making them happy. You're responsible for yourself. And sometimes it's like, the other day, I'll give you a perfect example. I came home and I'd just done a podcast and I absolutely loved it. I had such a great time. It's like, as you said earlier, you watch something and it just lifts you up. And I came into the kitchen just to talk to a housemate, and they were just like unnecessary, like rude, and gave me attitude. And it was like a balloon bursting. My mood just, and I normally I just ignore it and I'd let it go, but I kind of had a go at this person. I was like, what's the problem? What's your attitude? Like, why? Like, I'm just asked you a question. And, you know, they had their reasons and whatever. But thing now that I think about that was that the real reason I was annoyed, because I was in such a good mood before, and they just destroyed my mood just being an attitude, having a problem, you know? That's why, like, I realized, like, it's so important you manage your attitude and emotions around other people, because you have no idea how you're going to affect other people. It's a hard one. People out
No,
there
I bring the room down all the time.
whoa,
I bring the room down all the time.
I can account for that experience.
Unless I bring the bottles out, I'm like the mood goes like, and then like, I'm like yeah. Oh, for sure. I think more actually, recently for sure that kind of hit me. Recently, just that weird. It's weird, just hitting that sour note. I've been more recently just been calling it like for an individual when something like that, when that bubble pops. I've been just calling it a bad day. If someone's had a bad day, and it probably was that they just had a rough day, and it just, like you said, it popped, and you're just in that wave.
That's the thing. In that particular scenario, that was the first thought that came to my mind. I was like, and I said that, I was like, is something wrong? Do you have a bad day at work or something? Like, is something the matter? And they were, no. And I mean, this particular person never gives me apologies for anything. They're one of those people that always thinks they're right, and they don't, you know, and it is what it is, you know, and because this person is like brilliant otherwise. Like, they're someone I really like and respect, and I really like their vibe. But every once in a while, they'll say something. They'll do this thing where they have an attitude or something. They don't like something about what you're saying or whatever. And rather than kind of, and this is something I think as adults we have to learn to do, is that we have to kind of respect the fact that, like, we're not always going to like what the other person says or the mood they're in or whatever, but you got to manage yourself in an emotion. Like, that's what emotional intelligence is, and that's a learned thing. You have to learn that over time. But some people are very, and this person is like this as well, they're like very, oh, well, I can't believe they're being like that. I can't believe, you know, why don't you understand? Like, what's wrong with you? You know, and it's like, it's strange in adult life experiencing that, because this is the sort of thing that you experience when you're much younger, you know, when you're a teenager, and you let it go because you're all teens, like, you don't think about it, right? But when you get older and you start seeing that in various scenarios, like if you're at work and you see that, I mean, that's a big thing. We'll talk about things like professionalism. I think a big part of professionalism is not reacting in that manner. It's not to say you can't have emotions at work, but like, we've all seen when, you know, someone loses it and shouts at someone. In that moment, forever onwards, you can never really have respect for that person. Doesn't matter how stressed they were, angry they were. It's never okay to just start shouting at someone, you know.
I totally agree. Yeah,
it
that kind of.
I'll add a caveat to that. Like, if it's like a relationship situation and there's a lot of emotion there and there's things going on, that's one thing. But like in a professional setting or something like that, like, particularly, like I've seen it. I've seen like a boss shout at a worker, and then I've had people be like that with me. I remember one time I had a manager and they shouted at me. And I knew deep down that there was stuff going on in their personal life. I could just tell, you know. It's just you can tell, can't you? Sometimes it's not, you're not psychic. It's just you just know. And I kept saying to this person, if you ever need to talk, you know, at all, you know, and like what I meant was with work, but I also kind of meant personally. I just didn't spell it out. And I always said, like, always happy to talk, always happy. But this one particular day, I remember, like, I was really struggling with something, and I asked for their help because they're my boss, and just shouted in my face. And I remember just turning and looking in amazement, like I was just speechless. Then again, didn't get an apology for that, let it go. But after that, it was never the same again, because you can't have the same professional respect for someone when they've reacted that way. What's my point? Well, my point is that you've got to manage your emotions in a mature way. It's not to say you can't ever be upset or angry or whatever with people, but there are things that you let go, and then there are times when you challenge people, you know, and you have to pick your moments. And like that housemate situation that I told you about earlier, that's an example of someone being unnecessarily rude and getting annoyed because something's bothering them. And like they've told me like other people that bother them, like people they work with make jokes that they don't like and they don't want to be around that. And I get that. It's like, not those people that you work with. I'm someone different, and this is a different scenario. You can't like super annoyed and aggressive at every instance, you know?
No, yeah, totally agree. Like it takes. I think you put it the best way. A level of emotional maturity and a level of, at least in the workplace, some professionalism and just kind of understanding the situation. It's usually always situational because it can happen anytime, and it's just it can leave the what's the best word? I literally had the word in my head and it's escaping me. The people around you, not victims. What is the word? Why is words not coming to me? I need more coffee.
You have a coffee machine in that room. Go do it.
Sure. Oh, any like casualties. There we go. Got it. Any casualties around you, just end up in shock with whatever just happened. Whatever, like just like the scenario you mentioned about yourself, like that little burst, like whoa, because then you kind of lose, kind of like you mentioned, this level of respect or the way you viewed this individual. It just kind of like, I was not expecting that from you. I know Liz had yelled at me multiple times, and then done with the podcast. But
I bet you in those instances, Liz, I bet you apologize afterwards, right? Like, hey, I'm sorry, or like, you see what I'm saying?
Actually, and like outside joking wise, I don't think we've ever argued.
I don't think we've ever had an argument.
Like, yeah, we've never had a real
I wouldn't
argument.
remember that kind of stuff. No, no. We've never.
Yeah,
I think we're that kind of friends that we just know that we're all like joking.
Yeah,
That's
a whole different story. Yeah, outside of joking, I don't think me and Liz have ever had an actual argument.
Oh.
We just joking stuff, but
we discuss things and we've gotten like heated a little bit, but not like. But we retreat back when we go, oh, okay, this is not the story that we're talking about, or this is not the.
It's usually miscommunication or something.
Yeah, so it's exactly.
That's another thing. That's another thing. Communication is always key here.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it says a lot about you guys as, but also like both of you and your understanding of how communication works best. It's always best when you're talking. You know, when you're getting aggressive with someone, just getting pure emotion or whatever, not necessarily aggressive, but when you're just emotional, you can't really have a proper conversation. You have to kind of calm down and then be like, okay, now we can talk. And also, I'll add what I said the other before. Like, I think that you upset someone, even if you know you're right, or you know maybe they've overreacted or whatever the case may be. Like, I think you still have to kind of take care of them and like apologize to them and make sure that they're okay. You know, you can think like, oh, you know, they're with them, but like, you've got to kind of show that to other people that you care. You know what I mean? Like, in that instance that I gave, I was happy, I was in a good place, and then this person completely ruined my mood and then just made me feel like a problem. Okay? And then I walked away kind of just like, oh, okay. And now I don't really want to talk to this person particularly. You know, they're just kind of disappointed, you know. And I just think that, and that, don't get me wrong, like, I'm not trying to make out like I'm a perfect human being. I've made that mistake in the past. You know, it's something that you have to learn. It's like, okay, this concept of I upset you, and you know, yeah, maybe I am in the right. Maybe you are overreacting, but still kind of make sure that you're okay and take care of you in that instance, because you don't know. It could actually be like a triggering thing where, you know, it has nothing to do with the thing that you said. It could be like an undermining thing. Like, a perfect example is like, and I know that I've done this in the past by accident, where you upset someone and then you sit down with them and you're like, what's wrong? Like, you know, and then they tell you the real thing that's bothering. But the thing that you did, just the ignition, you know, it just built up and built up and built up and built up and then just burst, you know. Because I mean, this is a problem, isn't it, in life? It's a tricky thing.
The rice story, yeah. we have a weird story that you just kind of condense down, and we call it the rice story. We've said it multiple times, but to let you know a little bit. So it's just an incident where my sister was visiting with her kid. She brought over some white rice because that's all he can eat at the moment, because that's how picky of an eater he was at the time. And I woke up from my nap, and looked for food. She left it in the fridge, and like, oh, there's rice there. Went to greet it because it was just not labeled or anything. Just grabbed it, cooked it, ate it. Ooh, flames ensued when I was eating that rice. And it's just one of those moments where like, whoa, like you said, it's just shocking moment. Like, whoa, what is happening? Why am I getting yelled at for eating rice? And it was just a crazy moment, and to a point where it's very few things, and for me myself, I don't really get upset that easily. It just varies. I for the most part I've learned to kind of like settle down with any situation, but this was one of those things where like, why am I getting yelled at for rice? And it just heated me. One, I woke up, I was hungry, and it was this moment, and at this point she was very emotional, and it just went crazy. We kind of had to separate. My family had to separate us at this point, and kind of just settle down and kind of settle like you mentioned, just cool down. I know I'm doing a lot of hand motions, so I'm sorry anyone listening. Like, settle down. And after 2 hours, she came, saw me, and she apologized. And we kind of just talked it out really quick. But that is for the most part, a close summary of what the rice story is. There's a lot more to it, but that's basically what happened. So that is the rice story. But yeah, just take a moment for yourself, because I knew at that moment. Yeah.
I mean, it's a perfect analogy, I think, you know, especially in the sense that like a friend took the time to come back, like they cooled down and they came back to you, and they may have even still thought that like you were being unreasonable or whatever, but like that's, I think, besides the point in a lot of cases, you know, like when you think another person is being unreasonable or difficult, or you just don't like something that they're saying or whatever, or, you know, and I've learned this over the years, like everyone's different. Some people are very sensitive, some people are very hard as nails and tough. And for instance, if you get two people like that, the person that's kind of like a tougher mindset, maybe they get annoyed at the person that's being sensitive. They're like, oh, what's wrong with you? Why are you so sensitive? And it's like, you can't be like that, you know. They're a different person to you, and there's a reason why they are the way they are, you know. And it's not even necessarily a bad thing, it's just different, isn't it? You know, like there's positives and negatives to all different personality types, you know. And as human beings, it's like, I think we've got to do our best to kind of work with each other, you know. Our differences, sometimes it's going to be contrasting. There's going to be a friction, but you work with each other. It's like, oh okay, this thing upsets you, okay, my bad, I'll make sure to not make you feel this way again. I think when you don't have that mindset, when you're just only thinking about yourself, and you're like, oh, what's their problem? Why are they like that? That's a big problem. I had that years ago, and when I look at this person, since this housemate that I gave as an example, they're a bit younger than me. The mistake I made years ago, and they're an intelligent person. They'll figure it out for sure. I have no doubt in that. And it's like many of us, it's just the journey, isn't it, of life? You just, more and more people we get to know, and the more we're able to put aside our ego, because I think ego is a big part of it, you know, needing to be right in every situation, you know, just righteous or whatever. Like, in the end, none of that stuff matters. Like, it's just about caring about the people around you. You know, if you really care about someone, you're just going to sit and listen and be like, oh, okay, did you feel bad? All right, I'm sorry, let's move on, let's continue being friends, because that's what's important.
There we go. All right, Liz, is there anything you would like to ask Christian? We're getting towards the end of the show here.
Oh I don't think so. I think he's pretty much answered a lot of the questions I thought about, and then he said it. I'm like, all right, then okay.
All right. So yeah. So we're getting towards the end of the show. We're getting to the last two portions. Now it's time for like a story portion of the podcast. There's where we ask our guests to ask them about the weirdest, strangest, most convoluted thing that you've ever seen, done, or happened to you.
Yeah, so I wasn't really sure what to share here. And also, I just want to say quick beforehand as well, I'm so sorry. I feel like I've hijacked your show by just talking so much.
It's
so
all good, no worries.
Anyone who's listening who's like, oh, why does this guy talk so much? I'm so sorry. I hope you got something from this. But yeah, no, the weird story. So, I mean, I don't know. It's weird. It's disgusting. So, brace yourself. The weird part of it is more just why. Okay, so I'm in London. Would have been early 2010s, and I'm with a couple of friends. We're on the tube, the underground. It's late at night. It's probably 11 p.m., something like that. It's packed trains. If you've ever been in London, it's underground. It's it's busy. There's lots of people. It's I guess like any major city. When there's lots of people around, and it's a Saturday night or whatever. We're on the train, and normally, you get on the train, especially when you've had a drink and you don't think anything of it. You're just kind of lolling around like, ooh, like that, just kind of away with the fairies, having a laugh, right? Just hoping that you'll get home soon. And as soon as we get into this particular carriage, something's off. And I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And my then partner was like, no, don't. Like, she's telling me like, to not look or something, and I was being stubborn. I was like, what? No, what? What's going on? What's going on? And then I have like this sudden realization, and I'm like, oh, what happened was, imagine that we're kind of boxed into a corner because the train's going, nowhere to go, okay? It's not like we can't move towards what's going on, which I will get to, and there's nowhere on our left. So we're stuck in the corner, and we have to wait till the next stop, and who knows how long that's going to take. Then to look up. The first thing that hits me is the smell. It gets more potent and to realize what's going on. In front of me, a man sitting on the chair, kneeling forward. There's no one around him because of what's going on. I found that strange because that's the first thing that I saw. I didn't see what he was doing. I just saw, oh, that's strange. There's this strong smell and no one's around him. What's going on? And then I see the rest of the carriage have all gone to the farthest end of the carriage as they possibly can. They're doing the same thing that we're doing, except we're closer to this guy, and everyone else has been smart enough to not get on at this stage. But then again, we didn't know. We got onto this train blind, whereas the rest of the people saw what was happening and got as far away from this guy as possible. He's there. He's sitting there, and he's clearly drunk and some crazy drugs. I don't know. Sitting there in front of him. They're sick on the floor, and he throws up into his hands. He then proceeds to mash the sick in his face, all over his face, and he then eats the sick. And he just stares at his hands for a little bit longer. It sinks a little bit. He just sits there. So I'm a mixture of terrified, worried, like I'm going to throw up myself. And actually, we naturally jump off as soon as we possibly can. And we're looking through the next carriage into him, and he's still there. He's still sitting there on his own. And I'm worrying because maybe this guy's unhinged. You don't know what he's going to do. A madman that's sitting there eating his own sick. Like, who knows what's going to happen? It's one of these situations where it's like anything.
God, that's bonkers. Wow. Thank you for sharing that experience with us.
I got visual in my head.
Yeah.
Not good.
I get weird. So if anyone's listening, there's a little taste of his voiceover work where it's like telling us the story there. But man, oh god, that is bonkers, so man. Sorry. That ride must have lasted a lifetime for you guys.
The stench might have been like clothes. I'd be like getting rid of the clothes as soon as I got home. You're like stripping off in the yard.
Oh god,
seriously.
Man, I could.
We would just like pack like sardines together, and it like sometimes when you smell something, it just gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on. Like it almost like hits you in the sinuses, and just like like that.
And then it's in your mouth, like
Yeah, and
no.
I was so terrified. I couldn't believe it because I remember tapping my ex and just being like, "Look." She's like, "What? No." I'm like, "No. Look at what he's doing. Like, what the fuck?" Part of my language.
She's
Like,
probably
what
like,
is going
"This is
on?
never
Why
out
is
of my head."
I think she was more intelligent than me. She was smarter than me. I think she was thinking like, yes, let's not look at the crazy. Let's not, do that.
Antagonize him.
I'm like, oh, it's like the zoo. I'm like, oh my god, look at that. Look,
No,
like urban jungle, and this guy's, what's he gonna do next? Like,
No, I would be fixated on this individual and like, what am I watching, sensing, everything. It would just blinders just to that person, like what's happening? What is this? But what an experience, to say the least. Ooh, thanks for sharing that. I hope our audience, hope your stomachs are well after that story.
sorry, don't make. I'm sorry if you had dinner and then you listened to this. I'm so sorry.
I just had breakfast, so yes, it's kind of.
All right, so let's move on to the game.
Weirdest thing I could think of. I couldn't think. I was like, "What's?"
No,
the
that's fine. That's perfect.
It works. We're not lying.
Perfect. Trust me, that's perfect. We've heard some sweet stories. This is the first sensory one to my nostrils that I've listened to from our guests. So you're the first on that.
Me of when I was a kid, right? And like I remember I was young. I was probably like 10 or 11, maybe a bit younger. And we had like these wood carpets, and it was just me. My mum was a single parent mum, so it's just me and her. And I remember like sometimes I wouldn't quite make it to the bathroom, and I'd end up just like throwing up randomly in this tiny hallway we had. And I always remember, like, bless my mum, she had to she put on like these big kitchen gloves, like plastic kitchen gloves, and like she'd have like, I don't know, like a bandana or something to protect her mouth, and she was like rid of the sick and scrubbing the floor. And you know what sick's like, it just stays there forever, and she's scrubbing and she's getting more and more annoyed, and she's like struggling to like not to gag, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, and she's like, just go to your room, go to your room. And I can tell she's just not, this is not how she wants to be spending Saturday, like, just come on. And I felt so bad, but so yeah, always make it try and get to the bathroom if you're gonna be sick, because that stuff just stays otherwise forever. It lingers. Even when you do remove it and clean it, it's just there. Like, I remember a week afterwards, it would still sort of smell, despite all the cleaning products. Well,
you gotta get some Fabuloso, man. That's those tears things down. Oh, okay.
Because I walk by houses that use that stuff, and I'm like, oh, Fabuloso. All right.
Yeah, that stuff will linger. That will linger. That will overpower everything else.
These, like, yards and everything. I'm like, I'm looking around. What?
Oh, we need an industrial strength cleaner.
All right, so let's move on to the game show portion. Sorry?
I was gonna say, like, it would make me think that there's like something more sinister has happened there if they've brought out the industrial cleaner. Like, what the hell has happened in that house? Is that some true crime stuff right there? Like, what's going on? Murder.
Man, if that happened every time we had a cleaning service, damn. All right. All right. Let's do the game show portion of the podcast. All right, this is where the fun game show music starts.
Imagine it.
So, you decided to do Would You Rather. So, we have 3 prompts, and you're going to have to choose one of the 2 and let us know why you would choose one or the other. We'll go with the first one. Would you spend the rest of your life slowly melting, or drive a monster truck through a nursing home?
Come on. Come on.
what's your thinking process right now?
I hate you. That's my thinking process.
Oh boy.
Liz, you can help him spot it out if you want to help him a little bit.
I don't know. Would you want to be? I don't know, because you technically could be killing somebody if you were driving through a old place, old person's home. But slowly melting. What are we talking about, Jesus? What does it say? Like,
I would say
until you die or what?
Yeah. It's basically a timer. You're like slowly melting away.
Can I speed up? Can I speed up the process? Or no, I don't get any.
No, you're just slowly melting away. Unless you want to unalive yourself, which I highly recommend no one do. But yeah.
I guess I would. Yeah, I would unalive myself and go for the, like, you know. I mean, I'm one of those people. Okay. In a serious note, I can't live.
Where are the pros and cons? Pros and cons. Oh, okay.
I can't live with guilt. No. So as much as it might be appealing to be public enemy #1 and do the nursing home thing, I think that it would just be to live with the guilt. So I would do the melting thing, unalive myself, and just kind of I'll do that. Or if I can't do that, then at least my conscience is clear.
All right.
It can become an interesting sideshow at a circus. The man who's slowly melting.
There you
Mission
go. You gotta. There you go. You gotta make the best of a situation. Okay.
It's the best in that situation.
I have no idea. This one's a little easier. I think this one. Okay.
You get paid your money, but then like, your hands slowly dripping away. So it's like.
And then you have like no hand. You're like a nub.
All right. I think round 2 is going to be a little bit simpler then. All right. Would you spend the rest of your life having to sleep in a bucket, or every time you see an advertisement, you would have to buy said product or service?
Okay, come on.
What's the size of the bucket? Just out of curiosity.
There's a lot of different buckets. What's the largest? What's the largest bucket before it be considered a tub? That's what I would consider. Before it's called a tub.
Not fussy at all when it comes to that stuff. Like at all. I mean, the way I look at it is, you know, as long as I got somewhere to sleep, who cares? Like I remember one time I was about 14, and just say we consumed some substances the night before. And the next day I woke up with my neck at like a 45-degree angle, and I was sleeping on a pair of shoes. I'm pretty sure that is worse than sleeping in a bucket. I could find a way to make the bucket work, and you never specified how big the bucket is. The bucket could be bed-sized, so yeah.
Oh, true. All right, that's true. All right. You got through my round 2. All right, then time for the final round then. Final round here. Would you rather be constantly being followed by TMZ while they create lies about you, or be hunted for the rest of your life like an antelope by a bunch of wealthy colonial Englishmen?
Those guns, how much did they miss?
Interesting, you know, because I feel like the whole colonial Englishman platform, because I would become like an outright army dude. I'd hunt them as well. I'd make it into a sport, maybe. I don't know. That'd be fun. But if it was the TMZ thing, I couldn't care less. I mean, TMZ, like, how much credibility does TMZ have? Like if you believe everything you hear on TMZ, then I think you should really reevaluate your life. Like, come on. I go with a colonial thing. So that sounds like fun.
There you go. Make it into a game. All right, then. There you go. All right. Thank you for playing that portion of the show. So we're at the end of our show. We're going to let our guests provide any, what would you like the people to know? Where can they find you? And anything you would like to promote?
Yeah, sure. If you're interested in checking out what I do, basically in a nutshell, I am an aspiring actor, voice actor, podcaster, musician. I create content online, mostly just like little skits and, fun videos, I suppose. And you can find everything on my link tree, which hopefully the guys here will provide. I've got a few links that will just make it easier. But even if you just search my name, Christian Reeve, on most social medias, you'll probably find me. And yeah, just a mixture of long form and short form content, really. It depends on what you're into and what you like. But yeah, do a bunch of different things. Come join the party. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure meeting you guys. Thank you.
Nice meeting you too.
Pleasure is all ours. So, like everyone, thank you for listening. As always, you can leave us a voicemail at the number at 971-373-7515. You can leave us a message and we can listen to it in one of our future episodes. You can always follow me and Liz on our TikToks, Instagram, Twitter, or join our Discord, and you can just chat with us and enjoy our fun shenanigans. But thank you, Christian, for joining us on this wild ride that has been this interview and chit chat. Everyone, thank you for listening. Until next time, see ya.